Welcome back. This is the Polity reaching you live from the Abuja studios of Kaftan Television. Like I said before the break, I will now be delving into the matter of the suspension of the PDP national chairman, and in recent news, the replacement by an acting chairman. I've been joined in the studio now by PDP member and a member of the PCC. I believe is the deputy on polling for the Presidential Campaign Council 2023. Mr. Oseanene. He joins me now to speak on the matter of the PDP national chairman. Welcome and good afternoon.
Always a pleasure.
Well, it's been a while. I don't think we've spoken since the conduct of either of the elections.
No, yes. We're busy prosecuting an election.
Yeah, all right. We'll get to that perhaps later, just to get your thoughts on what the whole process. But before then, let's start with the latest bit of news on your party, which is that an acting national chairman has been announced or has been set to replace the national chairman, Wike-Ayu. Obviously, this came after his suspension from his state, and then a court order, restraining him from, acting as the national chairman. What do you think of this whole situation so far, and what does this really mean for the future of the party?
I think the framing matters, the language we use matters. So when you say Wike-Ayu was suspended, that's not correct. Some people at his ward in Benue State, the ward executive wrote a letter purporting to suspend him. We have a constitution, fortunately, and the constitution doesn't give them that power. In chapter 10, section 57(7) of that constitution, the only body that can suspend a member of the National Working Committee is our NEC, that's the National Executive Committee. So no ward level executive, no local government executive, no state level executive can even look into disciplining a member of the National Working Committee. This is not a new law. We've had it since. This is a 2017 amendment. It was amended in, I think, 2020, 2021. So it's a law we've had for a while. But what happened, this is reminiscent of what happened in 2021 with our then chairman, Uche Secondus, where very similarly to this, ward level executive from Rivers State got themselves together, again purported to suspend the national chairman illegally because they didn't have the powers. But I think what was more grievous then and even now is that this illegality was backed by the procurement of an ex parte injunction from a court. And it was so farcical back then in August 2021 that in the space of about 5 days, 3 different ex parte injunctions were procured. One from Rivers preventing Secondus from presenting himself as national chairman, one from Kebbi vacating the first injunction, then a third one from Kano, I think, reinforcing the first one. And it was so ridiculous to the point that the National Judicial Council and the CGN then Tanko actually had to step in and sanction those 3 judges. I think their promotions were deferred or denied or something like that. And he made a statement saying that the judiciary cannot lend itself to forum shopping and being used as a tool to settle political grievances. An ex parte injunction is a judgment you get or an injunction you get to restrain a party that you cannot serve in time when there's a pressing matter that you need to maintain the status quo. There is no emergency. We don't have any elections coming up. There's no primaries. There's no Congress. But like I said, they used this script 2 years ago. It worked. And then I believe that these same actors are replaying the scripts just to get rid of the national chairman. Again, to be clear, he wasn't suspended. He has only been temporarily removed because an ex parte injunction was granted, and we have to abide by these injunctions, whether we agree with them or not. When you say that someone else was nominated, again, we have a succession plan within our constitution. When you have a national chairman, you have 2 deputy national chairmen, one from the north and one from the south. And if the national chairman is from the north, if he is removed temporarily or permanently, it is the deputy national chairman from his zone that automatically assumes office. So in this instance, Ayu is from the North Central, he's from the North. He had been restrained from presenting himself as national chairman. Automatically, Damagun, who is from the Northeast, I think, assumes that position automatically until Ayu is able to either vacate this injunction or prove his case in court. But again, it's unfortunate, I think, it truly is unfortunate that the judiciary is playing an active and meddlesome role in the internal affairs of political parties.
So, well, you know, in your opinion, how do you think these injunctions are got? You know, it's as though it's so simple, you know, that, or let me put it this way, I'm not really sure how it's went about. But, you know, when we look at this, if you take a look at the judgment there, or the ruling, it says at the top there, between Engineer Conrad Terade Uta, who is a plaintiff applicant, and Senator Wike-Ayu and the People's Democratic Party. Is this done in such a way that the defendants and respondents can't respond? Like, the question I'm basically trying to ask is, when this was happening, was there an opportunity for the PDP lawyers or the chairman's lawyer to be there? Because I feel it's almost simple to say, you know what, there's no suspension. It says our constitution here, it can't happen. So do you think there was any such an avenue for that rebuttal, perhaps that could have stopped this?
So, and I use my words advisedly because I respect the judiciary. I don't want to pull them down. But, you know, advisedly, I would say, you know, this was mischievous for all the reasons you just highlighted. Ayu wasn't served. When you go to court and ask for an ex parte injunction, you are saying, I am not going to or able to serve this person, but I need an order from court restraining this person, and let this injunction be in place pending when the case is actually heard. And I think the judge has placed or fixed April 17th, coincidentally, after the INEC supplementary elections would have taken place. So it's mischief. I know they know it will not stand if it's prosecuted in court. But then what will probably happen is, you know, you go to the High Court, Appeal Court, Supreme Court. It may take a year or more before you resolve this thing. An event would have overtaken the case, just like it did with Secondus, because the party will continue to run whilst you're trying to regain the mandate you were elected for. So it basically is mischief. Ayu was not, you know, by virtue of this ex parte injunction, Ayu is not given the chance to defend himself until he comes to court on April 17th.
All right, so I think that would be perhaps another discussion with one of the legal practitioners. But that being said, let's look at the political aspects of things. I think it was just yesterday morning, we saw the Rivers State governor, you know, reiterate that he supports it. You know, when asked if he was behind it, he says he supports it fully, and, you know, when asked in what capacity, he says financially, in any way, he supports it wholly. And it brings to mind that he's still not over the issues that happened, you know, pre-election leading up to this. So the question is, with the benefit of hindsight, do you think things could have gone differently? Do you think perhaps giving in to some of the, let's call it appeal or demands, might have yielded results, or could it have led, you know, to perhaps a trip down the rabbit hole? What do you think could have been done differently?
You know, so I belong to this group in the PDP called the Leadership League. We're a group of young members who are looking to provide a different type of leadership from what we have currently been seeing. And we are actually undergoing a post-mortem of what transpired before the election, during the elections, and even in the immediate aftermath of the elections. And you are absolutely correct. And I want to answer your questions, again, like I like to do, on two separate paths. So, could things have been handled differently in the lead up to the elections? Could more concessions have been made? Absolutely. Could some of the requests or demands of some of the G5 governors have been met? Absolutely. I think with hindsight, we can see that we suffered from their reluctance to work for Atiku Abubakar. But the second track of my response to you is that you cannot always pander to bullies and bad faith actors. You know, you assume, for instance, that if Ayu had stepped down, this would have ended. But the elections are over, and you can still see a concerted campaign against Ayu. So it's now punitive. It's no longer about the interests of the party or the interests of the South. It feels like a personal vendetta being pursued. And again, like I said, you have to, and I've said this several times, you know, as leaders, as people who hold public office, the interest of the greater good of the collective has to always override any personal animus or grievance you might have. And I say it every single time. Everything Governor Wike has gone on to, if he feels betrayed or whatever, I suffered it. I ran for the PDP primaries, but I didn't, even though I was, you know, even though the way things transpired left a bitter taste in my mouth, I didn't work against my party. You know, I went and lifted the hands of my opponent who won, and I continue to find other ways and means to serve my party with my skills. You introduced me as the deputy director of polling for the PDP presidential campaign. I could have stayed at home and faced my business, but I believed in, like I said, this greater vision and in pursuing that greater good. You know, so it's not an excuse to say that something bad was done for you, so you are going to burn down the house, which is what appears to be happening, because Ayu has a very, very large following within the party. And if he is kicked out, you will find another splinter or another rebel group, you know, raising his head and fighting the new leadership that emerges under these less than ideal circumstances. So we cannot continue to, you know, replicate these actions that have eroded the goodwill and strength that the party has enjoyed previously. So again, I want to call on all our leaders, I want to call on Governor Wike, that a time must come where we sheath our swords. We look at why we may have lost the election. I'm saying may because we believe we won and we're in court. And we need to start acting in a way and manner that repositions the party to best serve the interests of Nigerians.
All right, let's quickly hear from one of our callers. Good afternoon. You're on to the Polity.
Good afternoon. You are on to SND from Kano State.
All right, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving us this ample opportunity to say our mind regarding the issues that have to do with the nation. First of all, let me appreciate the guest and then also ask some few questions. When are we going to begin to use our institutions instead of using individuals? That's number one question. Secondly, when are the actors, the political actors, will begin to respect the political institution? For example, we saw what happened in South Africa. It was the party who rejected Zuma, who stands for the issue that has to do with Zuma, to the extent that Zuma has to go. That is to show you the influence of the political party. When are we going to begin to see that in our country? Secondly, why is it that Ayu has to be punished? What about the 5G governors? What about the Wuchi? What is going on? What is the problem? Shall we remain in this present predicament? When we are talking of opposition, it does not mean that opposition will not do anything. Opposition has a lot to cover, has a lot to do. But when we keep on going this way, believe me, we are not going anywhere. So that is why I asked the first question. When are we going to begin to build our institutions instead of building individuals? Thank you very much. I remain SMD from Kano.
Thank you so much, SMD. Thank you for calling. All right, there are a number of issues there, some of them a bit broader than, it seems on the surface. But I'd like you to respond to that, and then particularly for the second question, I just add to what he said. If I'm not mistaken, I believe a number of persons, let me just list out the ones that I can remember here. Senator Chimaroke Namani, former Governor Ayo Fayoshi, we have Liri Olayinka from the Ekiti State, a number of people who have been said to be, engaged in anti-party activities have been suspended recently, but it seems as though people know that there are some major culprits, so to speak, who some of them have even, said this in public, that they worked against the party. Although I believe the Rivers State governor has some sort of court protection. But that aside, why aren't we seeing some level of punishment for these persons? So if you can, break them down.
Okay. I want to appreciate the guest. I didn't catch his name.
It's SND.
But his contributions and his questions, show that he understands the issues at hand, and he understands how critical it is for the opposition to actually provide opposition to any ruling party. We sort of need to stand as an opposition party between the government and the people, because the government, no matter how benevolent, will always have policies that punish the people, that make the people suffer. Whether you are in France, for instance, with their recent call to increase the retirement age by 2 years, you must, as an opposition party, always be able to stand in that gap between the government and the people. And what happens when you are fighting wars internally is that you are unable to provide that opposition, and then the government is left to run roughshod over the people. And so you indict yourself by failing fundamentally to fulfill your role, and you're no longer becoming deserving of that sobriquet, that title, that you are the main opposition. If for 4 years or 5 years you are battling, these types of things, then it really is disappointing. So I absolutely agree with him. I think we need to build the party. We need to build institutions above individuals. It cannot be about Ayu, and it definitely cannot be about Governor Wike. It has to be about the PDP and the type of opposition we want to provide. And when you talk specifically about selective application of discipline, like I said, the Leadership League, we released a statement recently calling this very thing out, that you can excuse the party not doing anything to Governor Wike because he has a court injunction restraining the party from disciplining him. You can excuse the party for not doing anything to Autumn because he also managed, I think, to procure, I like using the word procure, he also managed to get a court injunction restraining the party from disciplining him. But if you are going to punish a Chimaroke, and you are going to punish an Ayim, for instance, and you are going to punish a Fayoshe, what about a Governor Sheyi Makinde or an Ikpeazu or the other Wike-Ayu? What about them? And I'm not saying, I'm just saying, look, if you are going to punish offenders, punish everybody equally or grant everybody amnesty. But you cannot pick and choose who you punish based on the status of the individual, whether they are in office or not. If you are not going to punish Sheyi Makinde, if you are not going to punish all these other office holders, these governors, then don't punish anybody. Left to me, elections are over. I said that Governor Wike should sheath his sword. I think the party also has to come to a point where instead of punishing people who are looking to reconcile, if you are going to forgive everybody, forgive everybody. It should be a blanket amnesty. It cannot be a selective one. But I absolutely agree with the guest's comments. The PDP is not living up to its role, and it truly is disappointing.
All right. So that being said, for the future of the party, do you think perhaps, okay, we're already speaking on, punishment and thereabouts, but do you think what led to all of this is the fact that some things that happened in the past? Now, it's not exactly the same thing, but it seems as though politicians seem to think, I can do whatever now. It's almost this issue of, I'd rather ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. So as we see now, people make this analogy. I don't know what you make of it. They say, Atiku left the party, he worked against the party, he brought in or he helped bring in the APC government. He came back, he got the ticket, he came back again, got it again. And they say, you know, people like Governor Wike must have been watching and saying that, you know what, you know, when you work against the party, it's not really that big a deal. You just come back, say sorry, and you get it. Do you think this might have been what led to it? Because definitely, while he left, I'm talking about the former vice president, there must have been people who, you know, for lack of a better word, held the party down or sustained it in his absence. And then he comes back and he gets, you know, the biggest prize, so to speak. Is that what needs to change here? Because it seems as though, even though Governor Wike comes out and categorically says, I wanted South president, he doesn't even hide it anymore. He says, I told them vote to be or Tinubu, whoever you like, but it should be South. It seems like something that you should say behind closed doors, but now I'm saying openly. But it feels as though the mindset behind it is that after I've done this, I want to make an analogy. I hope it's not too extreme, but if you watch a lot of movies where people say to create a new order, we have to burn things down, it gives that feeling that I'll scatter the thing now, but I'll pick up the pieces. So is this a case of rewarding or, you know, a behavior that has been spotted continuing as per, even though I do whatever I do now, eventually they have no choice but to accept me?
So very quickly, if I can, I'll talk about Atiku's situation and why it's not quite an apple and apple comparison. Yeah. When Atiku first left the party in 2006, I think it was, if you recall, he had gone to the Supreme Court because Obasanjo had wanted to strip him of his role as vice president. Yeah. And he wasn't allowed to contest the PDP primaries. So he was driven out of the party in 2007 when he left. He ran because he wanted to express his ambition, and then he came back to the party. Fast forward to 2011, again he expressed his ambition to run. He contested against Jonathan. This was after President Yar'Adua had died, and it was supposed to be the turn, in quotes, of the North. Jonathan did not respect that zoning agreement at the time. Atiku ran against Jonathan and lost in the PDP primaries. He didn't leave the party and he didn't work against the party. Fast forward 4 years to 2014. Now this time Jonathan was running for a second term. Again, he was breaching an agreement to only run one term. Again, he was breaching an agreement that power should rotate to the North. And people were going to run against Jonathan, but if you recall, the party only printed one presidential form, and it was so absurd to the point that aspirants took the party to court to try and compel the party to print, to give access to other people who wanted to express their presidential ambitions. It was under those circumstances that Atiku left the party again. So that's why I want to say it's not an apple comparison you made. And I need to make the distinction between leaving a party you disagree with to work for another party and staying within your party and committing anti-party activities. You know, again, I like talking about our constitution because everything we talk about is not my opinion. The constitution says if you are aligned with another party, you have committed anti-party activities and you must be disciplined. So it's not, it's frustrating to me when you see our leaders come on television to say, I violated our constitution, I worked against the party, and there's nothing you can do for me. There's no remorse, there's no sense of responsibility, there's no explanation or even an attempt to try and justify it. It's just saying, I have done this, you cannot do anything to me. And I think, you know, we condemn the impunity of the electoral bodies, we condemn the impunity of the government. We also need to be able to condemn the impunity of people in our party who flout these laws because they feel nothing can happen to them. So it's not exactly the same thing. I just want to make that point clear. If you're unhappy with the PDP, then leave the PDP. What you don't try to do is, like you said, burn it down so that you can build it again. We're not corn. We're not a field of maize that you will burn, say you want to burn it and use us as manure to plant new maize. That's not how political parties work. You build upon iterations and iterations and iterations of progress. We have had about 7 constitutional amendments because we've been building on lessons we have been learning since 1998. You cannot burn all of that down and say you want to start afresh. That's the language of dictators. That's what dictators do. They say this democracy is not working. We don't have the patience to evolve. We're going to bring it down and install our own systems. And as a Democrat, I reject that type of thinking.
Right. I think that's fair enough. But this is just asking about your opinion. Not really. I know you can't predict if you can't say what will happen. But in this battle, as you say, battle of attrition, who do you think comes out? Because it seems as though even after the election, Governor Wike has not been in any way phased or reduced his energy, or he's still all for it. And to be fair, we're not really seeing, although throughout this period, Ayu's position has been pretty much reserved and hardly responding except once or twice and so on. But it seems as though the energy is still there, and I don't know how long it would keep up. But do you think at the end of the day, in what some people term the battle for the soul of the PDP, do you see the governor emerging victorious at the end of the day? Because it seems to be whipping up sentiments of we were wronged and now we must punish those who wrong us and then start to heal again, so to speak.
In a war of attrition, there are no winners, there are only losers. Everybody loses. Going into this election cycle, Governor Wike was projected as someone who could potentially be the president of the country. I do polling for the party, and one of the polls we ran was, perceptions of potential future leaders. His stock, his national stock, because of the way he has carried himself, has dropped precipitously. So he has lost significantly. He is not going to be governor of Rivers in 3 months' time. His tenure ends in a couple of months. And after that, the only thing you would have had, the only thing you can build on is your reputation. And that reputation has suffered simply because of the way he has carried out this war of attrition. As a party, we are in your position because we went in as a divided house. And this is not conceding the fact that we actually validly lost the election. But INEC didn't declare us winners. So when you talk about who wins, who loses, I think we all win, we all lose. I think Nigerians even lose because instead of us providing the opposition that they need, we are wasting our time with juvenile fights within the party. If anybody has won, I would say it's the APC. One of the things underperforming ruling parties do the world over is when elections come around, they split the opposition votes. And that's what happened. APC got about 8 point something, according to INEC. PDP got almost 7 million, or be about 6 million, Kwankwaso 1.4. If you add it all up, it's about APC's 8 million, opposition votes are almost 15 million. So Nigerians in the majority voted against the APC. But because we had a divided opposition, APC managed to put themselves in a position where they were declared as winners of the election. The other thing opposition parties do, again the world over, is if they are underperforming, they then sow discord within the ruling party. We saw something very similar happen even within the party when Ahmadu Sharif came into the party to almost destroy it, and immediately he finished his mission, he left back to the APC. So it's, if you ask me who wins, I think the APC is laughing and patting themselves at the back because of the foolishness being displayed by the PDP. Who loses? It's the PDP, is individual leaders like Makinde and Wike, even Ayu, even Atiku, and it's the Nigerian in general that are denied representative opposition because the PDP is busy fighting itself instead of fighting the ruling party.
All right. I don't know if you might want to respond to one of the some comments by the Ebonyi State Governor at one of the project flags of the of Governor Wike, where he says, you know, he says similar things that a lot of APC presidents have said. He said, Ayu is his man, Ayu is their man, that because if Ayu had been removed, it would have been tough for them. And while saying this, you know, Governor Wike is smiling, and he says, you know, he really works in their favor, and he will speak to, I believe, Asiwaju also, so he gets a place in the government. I recall similar thing was said for Obi by Minister of State for Labour and Employment, Festus Keyamo, where he said that at Tinubu's inauguration, there will be a special seat saved for Peter Obi because he ensured his victory and so on and so forth. So, you know, and taking this, you know, into account, does it seem, it seems as part of the question I asked earlier, but does it seem as though they could have, there was this very simple solution, which was, you know, add, you know, bring in the person causing you trouble. I remember, I think perhaps in his first media, you know, meet, the first of many after his, there was a fallow period after the PDP primaries, where I believe Governor Wike was a bit quiet, and then suddenly, you know, it kicked off. And I think one of the statements he made at that very first was that in the US, Joe Biden, while picking his VP, picked Kamala Harris because he said, this woman gave me trouble. So he gave the impression that he was expecting, you know, perhaps that after putting such a good show, it should have been part of the ticket. And then the issue of Ayu. So this statement being made by APC persons, do you think it's just to enrage PDP supporters, or is really something that happened behind closed doors?
So I watched the Ebonyi State Governor speak. And when he was speaking about Ayu, he was speaking in jest. It was comedic. He was, just like you said about Festus Keyamo and Peter Obi, it was like the action of these people actually helped us win, so we should honor them. He said it in that light. I think maybe more worryingly was when he said in the...
Sorry, Mr. Anene, just to cut you short, we have to go on a quick break now.
Okay.
When we return, I will delve further into it. We'll go on a break now. We'll return shortly.